I reborn as a billionaire's forgotten husband. Then his family discovered my plan to leave. Chapter 1: The Dead Man's Suitcase. The first thing I did after waking up in a stranger's body was plan my escape. I didn't know where I was. The sheets were silk. The room smelled like cedar and money. Sunlight poured through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked a private lake so blue it looked photoshopped. For one stupid second, I thought I was in heaven. Then the memories hit. Not mine. His. Elias Hart. 26 years old. Married to Adrian Vale for 3 years. Billionaire. CEO of Vale Industries. Owner of this estate, 3 private jets, and, according to the prenup I'd apparently signed, exactly zero claim to any of it. The real Elias Hart had spent 3 years waiting in this mausoleum for a husband who never came home. 3 years attending charity galas alone. 3 years smiling for cameras while his marriage rotted in private. 3 years of walking past Adrian's locked study and pretending he didn't hear the silence on the other side. Then, last night, Elias Hart swallowed a bottle of sleeping pills. And I woke up in his body. I sat on the edge of the bed, breathing hard. My hands, his hands, were pale and slim, with a thin white scar across the left knuckles. There was a wedding ring on my finger. Platinum. Heavy. I stared at it until my vision blurred. I didn't ask why I was alive. I didn't ask how. I'd been dead for maybe 6 hours before this, hit by a car on a rainy street in Chicago. I remembered the headlights. I remembered the impact. I remembered the exact moment my heart stopped. Then I opened my eyes here. And here was the first truth I learned about Elias Hart: nobody would have missed him. His husband hadn't spoken to him in 11 months. His father-in-law called him once a year to remind him not to embarrass the family. His brother-in-law ignored his existence entirely. The household staff avoided eye contact. The only person who might have noticed Elias was gone was the groundskeeper, and only because Elias was the one who signed his checks. The second truth: Elias Hart had been planning to leave. I found the documents in a locked drawer beneath the bathroom sink. A passport. A burner phone. A bank account under a different name. And a handwritten letter to Adrian Vale that had never been sent. You win. I'm done. I sat on the cold marble floor, turning the letter over in my fingers. My chest ached with an emotion that wasn't mine, a grief so old it had calcified into bone. Then I made a decision. I wasn't going to die in this house. I wasn't going to spend another day as a forgotten decoration in some billionaire's trophy case. I was going to finish what Elias started. I was going to run. I packed a single suitcase. Clothes. Cash from the safe in the closet. The passport. The burner phone. I moved fast, heart pounding, hands trembling with adrenaline that felt almost holy. This body was weak. Elias hadn't eaten properly in months, but I pushed through it. I didn't write a note. I didn't leave a forwarding address. I just wanted out. The front door was 20 feet away. I made it 19. The lock clicked. The door swung open. And standing on the threshold, framed by the cold morning light, were the last 3 men in the world I wanted to see. Reginald Vale. Adrian's father. Silver-haired, steel-eyed, built like a man who had never once apologized for taking what he wanted. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than the car I died in. Julian Vale. Adrian's younger brother. Handsome in a sharp, cruel way. His smile always arrived half a second too late. He was holding a tablet, and his eyes landed on my suitcase with the precision of a knife. And behind him, Adrian. My husband. He was taller than I expected. Broader. Dark hair swept back from a face that looked like it had been carved by someone who thought mercy was a weakness. His jaw was tight. His eyes, gray, cold, unreadable, fixed on the suitcase in my hand. No one moved. Then Reginald spoke. "Going somewhere, Elias?" The sound of my new name hit me like a slap. I swallowed. My grip tightened on the handle. I started. Don't, Adrian said. One word. Quiet. Final. He stepped past his father and brother. The air changed. I felt it in my chest, a pressure like a storm about to break. He stopped 6 inches from me, close enough that I could smell him, sandalwood and something cold, like frost on pine. Tell me, he said, why my husband is standing in the foyer with a suitcase and a face like a hostage. I lifted my chin. Because I'm leaving. Reginald laughed. It was not a warm sound. You're not leaving, Elias. You signed a contract. A marriage contract, I said. Not a prison sentence. Same thing in this family, Julian murmured. Adrian's eyes flicked to his brother. Stay out of this. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking, brother. Julian smiled. The little husband finally grew a spine. How inconvenient. I wanted to punch him. I didn't. But my fingers twitched, and I saw Adrian notice. Is that true? Adrian asked, still looking at me. You grew a spine? I grew tired, I said. There's a difference. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked like a bomb. Then Adrian reached out. His hand closed around my wrist. Not hard. Not gentle. Certain, his fingers were warm against my skin, and something electric shot up my arm, a jolt that made my breath catch. I tried to pull away, but he didn't let go. We need to talk, he said. I'm done talking. That's fine. You can listen. He turned to his father. I'll handle this. Reginald's face hardened. You've handled it for 3 years. Look where that got you. I said I'll handle it. There was a beat. Then Reginald nodded once and stepped back. Julian lingered a second longer, his eyes crawling over me with something I couldn't name. It wasn't lust. It was more like ownership. Like he was deciding which piece of me to break first. Good luck, little husband, he said. You're going to need it. Then he followed his father out the door. The door closed. And I was alone with Adrian Vale. Chapter 2, the cage gets smaller. He didn't release my wrist. He pulled me through the house, past the marble staircase, past the dining room with its never-used silver, past the hallway of portraits of dead Vale men who all looked like they'd been born frowning. I stumbled twice, my legs weak, but Adrian didn't slow down. Where are we going? I demanded. My study. I'm not going to your study. You are. He said it without looking back, like it was already decided. Like I was a piece of furniture he was repositioning. The study was at the end of the east wing. Dark wood. Leather chairs. A wall of books behind a desk the size of a small car. Adrian finally let go of my wrist, and I snatched it back, rubbing the spot where his fingers had been. Sit, he said. No. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he walked to the desk, poured 2 fingers of whiskey from a crystal decanter, and drank it in one swallow. You tried to kill yourself last night, he said. The words hit me like a freight train. I opened my mouth. Closed it. The memories were there, Elias's memories, the cold weight of the pills, the shaking hands, the slow slide into darkness. I hadn't known what happened after. I thought maybe someone found him. Maybe the staff. Maybe no one. How did you? I started. Security cameras. Motion sensors. The house system flagged an anomaly in your room at 2:14 a.m. He refilled his glass. I was in Singapore. I got the alert. I called the estate. They found you on the bathroom floor. So you flew back? Yes. Why? He stilled. For the first time, something flickered in those gray eyes, something that looked almost like anger. But when he spoke, his voice was flat. Because you're my husband. I laughed. It was a broken sound, ugly and raw. 3 years, Adrian. 3 years you didn't touch me. Didn't speak to me. Didn't look at me. And now you're here pretending you care because I tried to leave? You didn't try to leave. You tried to die. Same thing. No, he set the glass down hard enough that the liquid sloshed. It's not the same thing. He moved toward me. I backed up until my spine hit the bookshelf. He didn't stop until there was less than a foot between us, and I could feel the heat radiating off his body through the thin fabric of my shirt. Elias, he said, and the name felt like a hand around my throat. Why did you do it? I couldn't tell him the truth. I couldn't say, I wasn't the one who swallowed those pills. I couldn't say, your husband is dead, and I'm just some stranger wearing his skin. So I said the only thing that was true. Because I couldn't breathe. Something cracked in his expression. Just for a second. Then it was gone, replaced by that cold mask I was beginning to understand was armor. You should have come to me. When? Between your business trips? Between your affairs? His jaw tightened. I've never had an affair. No, I said. You just forgot I existed. He flinched. An actual flinch. It was so small I almost missed it, but I didn't. And that flinch told me more than his words ever had. I pressed the advantage. I signed a contract, Adrian. Fine. I'll honor it. But I'm not going to kill myself for this family. I'm not going to waste away in this house while you build your empire and your father treats me like a bad investment. I'm leaving. Today. No. You can't stop me. I can. He leaned in, his face inches from mine. I can stop you, Elias. I can call security. I can freeze every account in your name. I can make it so you can't walk out of this estate without tripping over a private guard. You're not going anywhere. My heart hammered. So that's it? I'm a prisoner now? You're my husband, he repeated, and this time the words sounded different. Less like a fact. More like a promise. And I'm not losing you like this. I stared at him. And despite everything, despite the fear and the anger and the terrible knowledge that I was an imposter in a dead man's life, something warm stirred in my chest. I hated it. Then what do you want from me? I whispered. He reached up. Slowly. Deliberately. His hand cupped my jaw, thumb brushing over my cheekbone. The touch was electric. My breath caught. My body leaned into him before my brain could stop it, some instinct deeper than memory. I want you to stay, he said. For 1 month. 30 days. If you still want to leave after that, I'll sign the divorce papers myself. No contract. No lawyers. No family interference. Just you and me. Why would I agree to that? He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Because you're not the only one who's been suffocating, Elias. And if you leave now, you'll never know why. I should have said no. I should have walked out that door and never looked back. But his hand was still on my face, and his eyes were still on mine, and there was something in the way he looked at me, like I was the first person he'd really seen in years. 30 days, I said finally. And then I'm gone. He didn't answer. He just leaned closer, until his lips were a breath away from my ear. We'll see, he murmured. Then he pulled back, crossed the room, and unlocked the door. Your room is the same, he said. Don't try to leave. You won't get far. I stood there, shaking, as he walked out. The cage had gotten smaller. Chapter 3, The House Remembers. The first week was war. Not loud war. Not shouting matches or thrown dishes. Quiet war. Cold war. The kind where every glance was a loaded weapon and every meal was a battlefield. Adrian moved through the house like a ghost. He worked late. He left early. He ate alone in his study. But he was here, that was the difference, and I felt his presence like a weight on my chest every second of every day. The staff watched me differently now. The housekeeper, a slim man named Samuel with sharp eyes and a talent for appearing silently, brought my meals on time for the first time in months. The groundskeeper nodded when I passed. A new security guard patrolled the perimeter, and every time I looked out my window, I saw him. I was being watched. I was being guarded. And I was being studied. Adrian didn't touch me again that first week. Not once. But his eyes followed me everywhere, across the dining room, through the garden, down the hallways. And when I caught him looking, he didn't look away. He held my gaze like a challenge. It made my skin hot. It made my heart pound. It made me furious. On the 5th day, I found him in the library. He was sitting in a leather chair, reading a book with no title on the cover. The fire crackled. The rain tapped against the windows. He looked up when I entered, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. "I'm not going to run," I said. "I know." "Then why the security guard?" He closed the book. "Because I don't trust my family." That caught me off guard. "What?" "My father isn't happy about your little escape attempt. My brother sees it as a threat to his inheritance. They're not going to let you walk away, Elias. Not while the contract still holds." "The contract," I repeated. "What exactly is in this contract?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood, crossed the room, and stopped in front of me. Close. Too close. I could smell the rain on his skin, the smoke from the fire in his hair. "You don't remember?" "I remember signing it," I lied. "I remember it was for money. For my father's medical bills." That part was true. Elias's father had been dying. Cancer. The treatment had cost more than Elias could ever afford. Adrian's family had offered a deal: marry Adrian, keep the marriage quiet, and they would cover everything. Elias had agreed. There was a clause, Adrian said. A duration. 5 years. 5 years? After 5 years, if we divorced, the family would pay out a settlement. Generous enough to set you up for life. He paused. But if either of us broke the marriage before then, you'd get nothing. And my father would make sure you couldn't get work in any city on the East Coast. I felt the blood drain from my face. So I'm stuck. You're not stuck. He reached out, and this time he took my hand. His fingers laced through mine, warm and solid. I'm changing the terms. What do you mean? I mean I'm not letting my father use you anymore. You're not a contract, Elias. You're my husband. He squeezed my hand. And I'm done pretending you don't exist. The words hit me like a wave. I opened my mouth to argue, but no sound came out. Because in that moment, with the firelight dancing across his face and his hand wrapped around mine, I didn't want to argue. I wanted to believe him. Why now? I whispered. Why do you care now? He lifted my hand to his chest. Pressed it flat against his heart. I felt it beating, fast, urgent, alive. Because I almost lost you, he said. And it was the only thing that ever scared me. The fire crackled. The rain fell. And I stood there, hand on his heart, feeling the walls I'd built around myself begin to crack. ## Chapter 4, The Brothers' Game. Adrian Vale was beautiful. That was the first thing I noticed about him, and I hated it. He had the same dark hair as Adrian, the same gray eyes, the same aristocratic bone structure. But where Adrian was cold and controlled, Julian was all sharp edges and wicked smiles. He moved like a cat, graceful, predatory, always watching. He cornered me in the garden on the 8th day. I was sitting on a stone bench, staring at the lake. The security guard had been dismissed for the afternoon. Adrian had finally agreed to give me space, and I was enjoying the first real silence in days. Then the gravel crunched behind me. Mind if I join you, little husband? I didn't turn. I'm not little. No, Julian said, settling onto the bench beside me. You're not. But it's more fun to say. I finally looked at him. He was wearing a linen shirt, the top 2 buttons undone, and his smile was razor thin. "What do you want, Julian?" "Straight to business." "I like that." He stretched his legs out, crossing his ankles. "I want to talk about my brother." "Then talk to your brother." "I would, but he's a bit protective of you these days. Won't let anyone near you." "It's adorable, really. The way he suddenly decided to play husband after 3 years of ignoring you." I clenched my jaw. "If you have a point, make it." "The point is that my brother isn't doing this because he loves you, Elias. He's doing it because he hates losing. You tried to leave, and that bruised his ego. Now he's going to win you back, and once he has you, he'll lose interest. Just like he always does." The words were designed to hurt. I knew that. But they still landed. "You don't know what you're talking about," I said. "Don't I?" Julian leaned closer. His shoulder brushed mine, warm and deliberate. "I've known Adrian my whole life. He doesn't fall in love. He collects. He conquers. And then he moves on. You're just his latest project." I stood up abruptly. "I'm done with this conversation." Julian stood too. "Faster." He blocked my path, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. "I'm trying to help you, Elias," he said. "My family will never let you leave. My father will bleed you dry. Adrian will tire of you. The only way out is if you have someone on your side. And that someone is you?" He smiled slowly. "I could be." His hand reached up. Fingertips grazed my jaw, feather-light. I didn't flinch, but my skin went cold. "Think about it," he murmured. "I could give you more than my brother ever will." Before I could respond, a voice cut through the garden like a blade. "Step away from him." Julian's smile didn't falter. He lowered his hand, turned, and spread his arms in mock innocence. "Adrian." What a surprise. Adrian was standing at the edge of the garden, fists clenched at his sides. His eyes were fixed on Julian with a fury so cold it made the air feel heavy. I said, "Step away." Julian sighed. "Relax, brother. We were just talking. Get out." The words were quiet. Lethal. Julian held my gaze for one more second. Then he stepped back, winked, and walked past Adrian without a word. The moment he was gone, Adrian crossed the garden in 3 long strides and grabbed my face in both hands. "Did he touch you?" he demanded. "He didn't hurt me." "That's not what I asked." He was trembling. Adrian Vale, the man who never showed emotion, was trembling with rage. "He touched your face," Adrian said, thumb brushing over the spot Julian had grazed. "I saw it. It was nothing." "It wasn't nothing." He pulled me into his chest abruptly, arms wrapped around me so tight I could barely breathe. "He doesn't get to touch you. No one gets to touch you." I should have pushed him away. I should have reminded him that I was leaving in a few weeks. But instead, I pressed my face into his shoulder and let him hold me. "You're shaking," I said. "I know." "Why?" He pulled back just enough to look at me. His eyes were wild, bright with something that looked like fear. "Because I thought I might lose you," he said. Again. Then he kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't careful. It was desperate and hungry and full of all the things he never said. His hands fisted in my hair, his body pressed against mine, and I kissed him back like I'd been drowning and he was air. When we finally broke apart, breathless and shaking, he rested his forehead against mine. "Stay," he whispered. "Please. Stay." And in that moment, I didn't know which one of us he was really asking. Chapter 5, The Truth in the Dark. I dreamed of Elias that night. Not the Elias whose body I wore. The real one. The one who had stood in this same bedroom, staring at the same ceiling, waiting for a husband who never came. I dreamed of his loneliness, his quiet desperation, the way he'd folded his clothes into drawers that were never opened by anyone but himself. I dreamed of the pills. And I woke up screaming. Adrian was there before I could even sit up. He must have heard me through the wall, or maybe he hadn't slept at all, because suddenly his hands were on my shoulders, his voice low and urgent in the dark. Elias. Elias, look at me. I gasped for air. My chest ached. My face was wet with tears I didn't remember crying. I'm not him, I choked out. I'm not him. Adrian went still. What do you mean? I froze. The words had slipped out before I could stop them, and now they hung in the air between us like a confession. I shook my head. Nothing. It was just a nightmare. You said you're not him. His hands tightened on my shoulders. Who, Elias? Who are you not? I looked at him. Really looked. In the dim light filtering through the curtains, his face was raw with something I hadn't seen before, something that looked like hope. I'm not the man who married you, I whispered. He didn't react. Not at first. Then he let go of my shoulders, sat back on his heels, and stared at me. Explain. I died, I said. The words came out in a rush, trembling and broken. 6 days ago. In Chicago. I was hit by a car. And when I woke up, I was here. In this body. In this house. With your ring on my finger and your name in my head. I expected him to call me insane. To laugh. To throw me out. Instead, he reached out and took my hand. What's your name? He asked quietly. Your real name. I blinked. You believe me? I believe that something has been different about you since that night, he said. I believe the eyes don't lie. And I believe that when I look at you, I don't see the man who signed that contract 3 years ago. He paused. So tell me. What's your name? I swallowed. Leo. Leo. He tested the name on his tongue. Is that short for something? Leonard. But no one ever called me that. Leo, he repeated, and a small smile touched his lips. I like it. I stared at him, my heart pounding. You're not going to call someone? Have me committed? No, he lifted my hand to his lips and kissed my knuckles, the same spot where the scar was. I'm going to ask you to trust me. Why would I trust you? Because I'm going to tell you the truth now, he said. The truth I should have told Elias 3 years ago. He sat on the edge of the bed, still holding my hand, and began to speak. The contract was my father's idea. He wanted an heir, someone he could control. Elias's father owed him money. A lot of money. The marriage was a way to collect. Adrian's jaw tightened. I didn't want it. I fought it. But my father threatened to destroy Elias's family if I didn't sign. So I signed. Then why did you ignore him? I asked. If you were trying to protect him, why treat him like a ghost? Because I thought he was part of it. Adrian's voice cracked. I thought he was working with my father. That he only married me for the money. That every smile was fake, every touch was a lie. So I built a wall. I stayed away. I convinced myself he was better off without me. But he wasn't. No, Adrian's grip on my hand tightened. He wasn't. And by the time I realized that, it was too late. He stopped leaving his room. Stopped coming to dinner. I told myself I'd fix it, but I kept waiting. Waiting for the right moment. Waiting for him to come to me. And then he swallowed a bottle of pills, I finished. Adrian closed his eyes. Yes. We sat in silence for a long moment. The house creaked around us, settling into the night. When I woke up in this body, I said slowly, I found a letter. He wrote it to you. It said, you win. I'm done. Adrian flinched. I never got a letter. It was hidden. Under the sink. He opened his eyes, and I saw the tears there. He thought I won, he whispered. He thought I wanted him gone. Did you? No, he pulled me into his arms, holding me so tightly I could feel every beat of his heart against my chest. I wanted him to fight for us. And I was too much of a coward to fight first. I didn't know what to say. So I just held him back. We stayed like that until dawn. Chapter 6, The Father's Ultimatum. Reginald Vale summoned me to his office 3 days later. The office was in the West Wing, far from Adrian's study. It was darker there, heavier, filled with the kind of silence that pressed against your ears. Reginald sat behind a massive desk, hands folded in front of him, watching me with the cold patience of a man who had never once lost a negotiation. Sit, he said. I sat. My son tells me you tried to leave, he said. And that he convinced you to stay. For now. For now, Reginald repeated. And what, exactly, do you think will happen when your 30 days are up? I met his gaze. I'll leave. No, you won't. He leaned forward. You'll do what you're told, Elias. You'll smile for the cameras. You'll play the devoted husband. And when the 5 years are over, you'll take your money and disappear. That was the deal. I didn't make that deal. You did. He smiled thinly. Maybe you don't remember. But I do. And I have the documents to prove it. I wanted to tell him the truth, that I wasn't Elias, that the man who signed those documents was dead, that I owed this family nothing. But I couldn't. Not without sounding insane. What do you want from me? I asked. I want you to understand your place. He stood, walked around the desk, and stopped beside my chair. His hand landed on my shoulder, heavy and cold. You are a piece on my board. Nothing more. If you try to run again, I will make your life very, very difficult. And if you continue to distract my son from his responsibilities, I will make it impossible. I didn't flinch. Adrian is a grown man. He makes his own choices. Adrian is the heir to Vale Industries. His choices have consequences. Reginald's fingers dug into my shoulder. And you, little husband, are a consequence I can remove at any time. The door burst open. Adrian stood in the doorway, breathless, his eyes blazing. Get your hands off him. Reginald didn't move. Adrian. How nice of you to join us. I said get your hands off him. Adrian crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbed his father's wrist, and pulled it away from my shoulder. Don't touch him. Ever. Reginald's expression didn't change. You're making a mistake. The only mistake I ever made was letting you turn my marriage into a business arrangement. Adrian stepped between me and his father, his body a shield. That ends now. Does it? Yes. Adrian turned to me, took my hand, and pulled me to my feet. Come on. We're leaving. Reginald's voice followed us out the door. You can't protect him forever, Adrian. Sooner or later, he'll realize you're the reason he's trapped here. Adrian didn't respond. He just tightened his grip on my hand and kept walking. We didn't stop until we reached his bedroom. His room, not mine. He closed the door behind us, locked it, and then turned to face me. I'm sorry, he said. I should have known he'd try something like this. I'm fine. You're shaking. I looked down at my hands. He was right. I was trembling. Adrian stepped forward and wrapped his arms around me. He pulled me into his chest, one hand cradling the back of my head, the other pressed flat against my spine. I won't let him hurt you, he murmured into my hair. I won't let anyone hurt you. You can't promise that. Yes, I can. He pulled back, cupped my face in his hands, and looked me straight in the eye. I love you, Leo. Not Elias. Not the man in the contract. You. And I'll burn this whole family to the ground before I let them take you from me. I stared at him, stunned. You barely know me, I whispered. I know you're the first person who's ever made me feel alive, he said. I know you're the reason I wake up in the morning. I know that when you threatened to leave, it felt like someone ripped my heart out of my chest. He brushed his thumb over my cheek. That's enough. I opened my mouth to argue, but he kissed me before I could. This kiss was different from the one in the garden. It was slower. Deeper. It tasted like a promise. His hands slid from my face to my waist, pulling me closer, and I melted into him like I'd been waiting my whole life for this moment. When we finally broke apart, he pressed his forehead to mine. Stay with me, he said. Not because of the contract. Not because of my family. Because you want to. I closed my eyes. And I realized that I did. Chapter 7, the month that changed everything. The next 3 weeks were the strangest, most wonderful of my life. Adrian kept his word. He stopped working late. He stopped hiding in his study. He took me to dinner in the city, to museums, to a bookstore where he bought me an entire shelf of novels because I mentioned I used to love reading. He held my hand in public. He introduced me to his business partners as his husband, and he didn't flinch when they looked surprised. We talked. Late into the night, curled up on the couch in his bedroom, sharing secrets like teenagers. I told him about my life before, the car accident, the small apartment in Chicago, the job I'd hated, the cat I'd never had but always wanted. He told me about his childhood, the pressure of being the heir, the way his father had turned him into a weapon. We fought, too. Small fights, silly fights, fights about where to eat and what to watch and whether he was allowed to threaten the delivery boy for looking at me too long. But we always made up. And making up was my favorite part. He couldn't keep his hands off me. Not in a sexual way, or not only in a sexual way. He touched me constantly. A hand on the small of my back. Fingers tangled with mine. An arm draped over my shoulders. He kissed me in doorways and elevators and the middle of crowded restaurants. He pulled me into his lap while he read contracts, his chin resting on my shoulder, his breath warm against my neck. I'd never felt so wanted in my life. But there was a shadow hanging over everything. The 30 days. I'd stopped counting after the first 2 weeks, but the deadline was always there, lurking in the back of my mind. I knew I should think about it. I knew I should make a plan. But every time I tried to bring it up, Adrian would distract me with a kiss or a joke or a hand sliding under my shirt. And I let him. On the 26th day, Julian appeared again. He was waiting for me outside the gym, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. His smile was back, sharper than ever. You look happy, he said. It's disgusting. I ignored him and walked past. My brother's been playing house, Julian called after me. How sweet. But you should know, he's not the only one who can play that game. I stopped. What do you want, Julian? I want to show you something. He pushed off the wall and fell into step beside me. Come with me. No. It's about my father's plans, Julian said. Plans that involve you. And if you don't see this, you'll regret it. I hesitated. Julian had been a snake since the day I met him, but he'd never looked this serious. Fine, I said. But if you try anything, I'll break your nose. Julian laughed. I'd like to see you try. He led me to a small room at the back of the house, a media room I'd never been in before. He closed the door, pulled out his phone, and pulled up a video. This is a recording from my father's office, Julian said. He doesn't know I have it. The video showed Adrian Vale sitting at his desk, talking to a man I didn't recognize. The marriage is a liability, Reginald was saying. Adrian is distracted. He's not focused on the company. If we don't eliminate the problem, we'll lose everything. The other man nodded. What do you want me to do? I want you to make it look like an accident, Reginald said. The little husband has been fragile since his suicide attempt. No one will be surprised if he takes another trip to the hospital and doesn't come back. I felt the blood drain from my face. Julian stopped the video. He's planning to kill you, Elias. Or Leo. Or whatever your name is. My father doesn't care about the contract anymore. He cares about control. And you're in the way. Why are you showing me this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Because I hate my father more than I hate you, Julian said. And because if anyone's going to take you down, it's going to be me. I stared at him, trying to process. So you're helping me? I'm helping myself. He pocketed his phone. My father's been planning this for weeks. He hired a man. The job is set for the night of the charity gala, 2 days from now. You'll be alone. Adrian will be working the room. And you'll have a tragic accident. Adrian will stop it. Adrian doesn't know. Julian met my eyes. And if you tell him, my father will know I warned you. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. Tonight. Before anyone knows. I'll cover for you. And by the time my father realizes, you'll be long gone. I shook my head. I'm not running. Then you're dead. Adrian will protect me. Adrian can't protect you from a bullet. Julian stepped closer, his voice dropping. I'm not doing this for you, little husband. I'm doing it because I refuse to let my father win. If you have any sense left, you'll take the out I'm giving you. He walked past me, pausing at the door. The offer expires at midnight. Then he was gone. Chapter 8, the night before the end. I told Adrian everything. Not because I trusted Julian, I didn't. But because I trusted Adrian, and because I was done keeping secrets. He listened in silence, his face growing darker with each word. When I finished, he stood up, crossed the room, and pulled out his phone. I'm calling security, he said. Adrian, wait. I grabbed his arm. If you call security, your father will know Julian warned me. He'll go after Julian. I don't care about Julian. I know you don't. But if your father realizes his plan is exposed, he'll just find another way. We need to be smarter. Adrian turned to face me, jaw tight. What do you suggest? We use the gala, I said. Your father is planning an accident. We'll give him one, just not the one he expects. He frowned. What do you mean? I mean we make a scene. A public scene. Something that puts me in the spotlight so your father can't touch me without exposing himself. I paused. We announced the marriage is real. That we're staying together. That anyone who tries to separate us will answer to you. Adrian stared at me. You'd do that? You'd stay? I already decided to stay, I said quietly. I just didn't know how to tell you. He didn't move. For a long moment, he just looked at me, like he was afraid I'd disappear if he blinked. Then he crossed the room, grabbed my face, and kissed me so hard I forgot my own name. I love you, he said against my lips. I love you, Leo. I should have said it 100 times before now. I should have said it the first time I saw you. I should have said it every day for the past 3 years. Then say it now, I whispered. Say it every day from now on. He pulled me into his arms and held me so tight I thought I might break. Every day, he promised. Forever. We spent that night planning. Adrian reached out to his security team, the ones he trusted, not his father's men. He arranged for extra protection at the gala. He hired a private investigator to dig into Reginald's finances, looking for proof of the contract killing. And then, when the planning was done, he took me to bed. Not for sex. Not yet. Just to hold me. We lay in the dark, tangled together, his heartbeat steady under my ear. What if your father's plan changes? I asked. What if he does something sooner? Then I'll be ready. Adrian pressed a kiss to my hair. I'm not losing you, Leo. Not to my father. Not to anyone. Promise? I promise. He tilted my chin up, kissing me softly. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. I closed my eyes and let myself believe him. ## Chapter 9, The Gala. The gala was exactly as awful as I'd imagined. A ballroom full of billionaires, all of them pretending to be more important than they were. Crystal chandeliers. Endless champagne. A string quartet playing music that made my teeth ache. Adrian stood beside me, his hand a warm weight on my lower back, guiding me through the crowd with the ease of a man who'd been born for this. "You look beautiful," he murmured in my ear. "I look like I'm about to throw up." "You look beautiful anyway." He squeezed my hip. "Just stay close." I nodded and took a deep breath. We'd rehearsed this. The plan was simple: work the room, act normal, and wait for Reginald's move. Adrian's security team was scattered around the ballroom, watching every exit. The private investigator had found enough evidence to bury Reginald, if it came to that. The only wild card was Reginald himself. He was standing near the bar, flanked by Julian and a group of men in dark suits. He looked calm, confident, completely in control. But when his eyes met mine across the room, I saw something else. Something cold and calculating. "He's watching us," I said. "Let him watch." Adrian pulled me closer, pressing a kiss to my temple. "He's about to lose the only leverage he has." We made our way toward the stage at the front of the ballroom. Adrian had arranged to give a speech tonight, something about the company's future. But the real purpose was much bigger. "You ready?" Adrian asked, his lips brushing my ear. "Ready." He squeezed my hand, then stepped onto the stage. The room went quiet. "Ladies and gentlemen," Adrian began, his voice smooth and commanding. "Thank you for coming tonight. For years, Vale Industries has been built on a foundation of loyalty, discipline, and family. But tonight, I want to talk about something more important than business." He paused, looking at me. "I want to talk about my husband." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Cameras flashed. "Elias and I were married 3 years ago," Adrian continued. "But for most of that time, I was not the husband I should have been. I was distant. I was cold. I let my family dictate the terms of my marriage, and I nearly lost the only person who matters to me." He held out his hand. I took it. He pulled me onto the stage, right beside him. "I'm done letting other people control my life," Adrian said. "I'm done pretending my marriage is a contract. From tonight on, there is no contract. No terms. No expiration date. There is only us." He turned to me, and I saw the love in his eyes, fierce and bright and terrifying. "Elias," he said, but his eyes said, "Leo, I love you. And I want the whole world to know it." Then he kissed me. The room erupted. I heard gasps, applause, the rapid click of cameras. Reginald's face flashed white with rage. Julian looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. But I didn't care. Because Adrian's arms were around me, and I was exactly where I was supposed to be. ## Chapter 10, The Aftermath. Reginald made his move an hour later. He cornered me in a side hallway while Adrian was talking to the press. His face was pale with fury, and there was a gun in his hand. "You think this changes anything?" he hissed. "You think a public kiss makes you untouchable?" I backed against the wall, heart pounding. There are cameras everywhere. People everywhere. You can't do this. I can do anything I want. He raised the gun. I built this family from nothing. I will not let some gold-digging whore destroy it. I closed my eyes. Then I heard a crash. Adrian slammed into his father from the side, knocking the gun from his hand. They hit the floor hard, grappling, and the gun skittered across the marble. Security guards appeared from every direction, shouting, weapons drawn. I dove for the gun, but someone else got there first. Julian. He picked it up, pointed it at his father, and smiled. "Hi, Dad," he said. "You're under arrest." Reginald stared at his youngest son, disbelief etched across his face. You betrayed me?" You tried to kill an innocent man, Julian said. That's where I draw the line. The police arrived minutes later. Reginald was taken away in handcuffs, still shouting threats. The guests were evacuated. The ballroom emptied. And through it all, Adrian never let go of my hand. ## Chapter 11, The Family We Choose. The weeks that followed were chaos. Reginald was charged with conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and a dozen other crimes. Julian turned state's evidence in exchange for immunity, and the family empire began to crumble. Adrian took control of the company, cleaned house, and rebuilt from the ground up. But at night, when the world went quiet, it was just the two of us. We left the estate after the trial. Too many memories. We moved into a smaller house on the coast, still luxurious, but warm. Adrian learned to cook. I adopted a cat. We planted a garden, even though neither of us knew what we were doing. And every night, he held me. I have to tell you something, I said one evening, curled up beside him on the porch. He looked at me, smiling. You already told me you love me. What else could there be? I'm not Elias, I said quietly. I'll never be Elias. And sometimes I worry that when you look at me, you're still seeing him. Adrian was silent for a long moment. Then he took my hand and pressed it to his heart. I see you, Leo, he said. I see the way you wrinkle your nose when you laugh. The way you always leave the bathroom towel on the floor. The way you talk to the cat like she understands you. He kissed my knuckles. I see you. And I love you. Not the man in the contract. You. I blinked back tears. I love you too. He pulled me into his arms, and we sat there as the sun set over the ocean, wrapped up in each other. The family I'd been born into was gone. The family I'd married into had tried to kill me. But the family I'd chosen, the one that started with a dead man's suitcase and a plan to run, was right here. And I was never letting go. ## Chapter 12, The Vow. Adrian proposed on a Tuesday. It was ridiculous, really. We were already married. But he insisted on doing it properly, down on one knee in the middle of our kitchen, holding a ring box with shaking hands. I know we're already legally bound, he said. But I want to marry you. Not Elias. Not the contract. You. I laughed, then cried, then said yes. We had a small ceremony on the beach. Just us, the officiant, and Julian, who had somehow become a permanent fixture in our lives. He still annoyed me constantly, but he'd also saved my life, so I allowed it. Adrian wore a gray suit that matched his eyes. I wore white, because I'd never been one for tradition anyway. And when we said our vows, I meant every word. I promise to be the husband you deserve, Adrian said, tears streaming down his face. I promise to never let a day go by without telling you how much you mean to me. I promise to stand beside you, no matter what comes. I promise to love you, Leo, for the rest of my life. I smiled through my tears. I promise to stop trying to leave you. He laughed, then kissed me, and Julian pretended to gag in the background. You two are disgusting, Julian called. Genuinely revolting. Shut up, Julian, we said in unison. And then Adrian kissed me again, and the world went quiet. ## Chapter 13, The Quiet Life. 5 years later, I stood in our kitchen, watching the rain fall. Adrian was behind me, his arms wrapped around my waist, his chin resting on my shoulder. What are you thinking about? He asked. The day I tried to leave, I said. The suitcase. The door. Your father standing there like death. He pulled me closer. Why are you thinking about that? Because I almost did it, I said. I almost walked out. And if I had, I would have missed all of this. He turned me around, cupped my face in his hands, and looked at me with so much love it made my chest ache. But you didn't, he said. You stayed. And I will spend every day of my life being grateful for that. Then he kissed me, slow and sweet, and I melted into him. The rain kept falling. The cat meowed from the other room. And somewhere, far away, a man who should have been dead closed his eyes and smiled. He was home.